everybody. Welcome to RBCM at Outside, springtime at the beach, and it certainly is springtime at the beach. Those of you who joined early, welcome if you're in the Zoom room. Oh, can you hear okay, Jenny? Yes?
I can hear you well.
Sorry?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Sorry, I thought I saw a warning message go across there.
No.
So yeah, we're in the rain here, and we were just saying before we started, because there was a little patch of sun in the sky, aren't we lucky? Beautiful. It stopped raining, and then the heavens opened up, and now it's pouring. And I haven't had to do this, hold the camera and hold an umbrella at the same time, but we're going to persevere. We're going to do our best. Sound might be a bit of an issue, so just bear with us. So I'll make my introduction for as quick as possible, but I want to say that, absolutely welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I want to acknowledge we're down here. I don't know if any of you folks that are local recognize we're down at Dallas Road Beach. And so we are on the territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nation. And it's just an incredible stretch of beach here and so close to Victoria City. If you're local, you'll know it for sure. When I was down here a couple of weeks ago, I saw orcas go by. This morning, I saw shorebirds. And what we're going to be looking at today are the smaller animals, some invertebrates. But it's still so close to the city and in this beautiful Lekwungen territory, and just amazing the diversity that is here. I also want to say that this program time is going to switch. It's going to change in the next couple of months. So we're going to try a different time to see how that works for folks. So the next program will not be a Wednesday afternoon at 2. It will be Thursday, April 8th at 12 p.m. We're going to switch to lunchtime every second Thursday at lunch. So the next program, I hope you can join us, is April 8th on a Thursday, and it's about dark heritage. Very intriguing. So the description's on the website. I'll let you check it out there. Hope you can join us. Just checking my notes. Oh, yes. So this format here is a webinar if you haven't joined us before. So you will be able to interact with us in the chat. We can't see or hear you. We will save some time at the end for questions. We've checked the internet connection here and it's pretty good. So hopefully we're not going to lose you. But if we do go dead for a little bit, just hang on and we'll come right back on because we're really close to the United States here. And occasionally the phone, which we're working on the phone here, will roam over to the United States and we might get it drop our connection. Now, so I've showed, Henry, let me see. I'm going to go ahead of you, Henry. If you go over to the right, I'm going to step over here and get Henry in the back. So you can see I've got Henry's in the yellow, Dr. Henry Choong. Oh, I'm losing him. And then way over there is Dr. Joel Gibson. And so both of them are curators. And Henry, in yellow here behind me, is curator of marine invertebrates at the museum. And Dr. Joel Gibson is curator of entomology, so insects, at the museum. But they often work together, do research together. And because what the animals that they look at, sometimes their habitats overlap. So that's what we're going to look at today. Springtime at the beach. Rain is part of spring. And we're going to have a look at what could be living here at this beach, especially a beach that's so close to the city. I'm amazed what they've already found. So I'm going to start talking, flip the camera around. Hang on a second, Henry. And, you can just see me, Henry. Hang on, let's get me out of there. There's Henry. I'm going to go a little bit closer. And then Henry will take his mask off. We're going to stay distanced. And we'll start with Henry and see what he's found here. And look at the sky is opening up behind Henry. It's going to stop raining. Sure it is. Okay, Henry, how are you? What can you show us today here at the beach?
Okay. Hello, it's a beautiful day here in the beach in Victoria. And so what we are doing here, I'm out here with Liz and Joel Gibson, the curator of entomology. And part of our research is looking at shorelines and the life on shorelines. Shorelines are interesting places because shorelines represent the intersection between the ocean and the land. And And quite often we study what's in the ocean and we study what's on the land, but there's this very special area which is where it all comes together, and that's what we're doing. Is we're looking at biodiversity of shorelines, how shorelines are actually living places, and how they develop, how life on them works, and how they interact.
And intersections of habitats often do have really rich in biodiversity.
Well, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So, but and Henry, sorry to interrupt, but folks, we're having a bit of hard time hearing. So let's get it further away from the waves.
Okay,
Let's and you can if you talk a little louder, we'll go away from the waves.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay. So there's it probably doesn't look like there's much happening out here today because of you see the gray weather and you don't see much of anything else. But what we're seeing here on the beach is all this rack. Now, rack, when we refer to rack, we're referring to all the algae, bits and pieces of the algae that are washed up from the ocean.
So, like even right here, you seeing anything interesting here?
Well, yes. So this mass here,
It's so colorful.
it's very colorful because there's many different kinds of algae in this rack, as well as grasses, sea grasses, and within this rack, what this rack represents is it represents both a food source for animals that are living on the land close to the shore, and it also represents food sources for example, for insects that Joel is looking at.
Yeah.
And so within this, we also find animals that are living on the algae that have been washed up. For example,
Yeah. I'm really curious about what you found over here.
on kelp that are washed up, you often find animals that are living on hydrozones and so on that are pretty hard to see if you're not looking up close.
So, and so those animals that
Oh, Liz, you're cutting up a little bit. Do you mind moving to maybe bringing that to a different location?
That's right.
Thanks, Jenny. We'll go a bit further away.
Okay.
Okay.
Where you
Well,
were
that's
before
good
was
because
great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay here?
Yeah, it's okay here. And the other things that we find on the beach are things that are washed up that are not necessarily from the immediate area, such as this rope here,
Yeah, this is so cool. Okay.
which is probably previously attached to a buoy or a dock. And on this rope, we see, for example, a lot of animals that are living on here, such as these anemones, tube worms, and also
Okay.
and algae, of course. And
Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up. Okay. Or which can you point to the anemone here?
okay, these are the
Well,
anemones.
So I've got So
These are the
folks
tube
can see.
worms.
Okay.
Okay.
Now wait, is that the worm or is that the casing for the worm?
Well, we call them tube the tubes that the worms
Okay.
are living in.
So are there worms in there right now? Is it possible? I'm not. You don't have to try to draw them out.
No, I'm just
You,
looking.
you think maybe they're
Uh,
empty, but
probably in some of them, yeah.
Okay. But these white, I don't know if folks can see that. These are anemones. And what kind of anemones are those? Holy smokes.
These are the plumose anemones that you see on the sides of the docks. The long, white ones.
Yeah.
We have them actually in a tide pool.
Oh, at the museum.
Yes.
Can you say the name again, slower? The name of the anemone?
These are plumose anemones. The plumose.
Plumose.
They're-
Oh, okay, I didn't catch that.
They're
Okay.
the great big long white ones.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
And,
can picture those when they're opened up, and
yeah,
this is them
yeah.
all closed up.
Yeah, they look like that because they're out of the water.
Right.
And also you see lots of algae on there. And right here, you see also hydroids.
Oh, let's see.
Right
That's
there.
a hydroid.
That's a hydroid.
Okay.
That's there you go. That's a polyp stage of a hydrozone. And so they like to live on different surfaces like ropes, other animals, rocks.
That is hard to see. I don't know if folks can see that.
Yeah, right there where my finger is. Okay, and so this is this is an example. This is an example of how species are transported away from where they usually are. In this case, they're not from that far away, but certainly they're not from this beach.
Yeah. Okay. That is amazing that you found those just right here. Thank you, Henry. Okay, now you have mentioned insects a couple times. So what I think we're going to do, we're going to go over to Joel, and then we'll see what Joel's got over there, and then we can come back for some questions to Henry and Joel. Okay, so are you ready, Joel? I'm hoping it might be a bit quieter over here. So here we have Dr. Joel Gibson. Hello, Joel.
Hello, folks. How are you? Thanks for joining us today on this day, even if it's rainy. But there's lots of stuff we can talk about with insects. It's great that Henry got to tell you about some of the neat stuff he's finding on the beach. And one of the great things is Henry and I get to come out to the beach together and we look at different things. Even though we're both really interested in shoreline biodiversity, which is the big fancy way we like to say it, but the fact is we both like to look for stuff on the beach.
And you get paid to look for stuff on a beach.
Yeah, it's a great job. And plus we get to share it. I mean, if we only ever did it and didn't get to share it with anybody, it's not nearly as fun. Because that's my favorite part about science, sharing it.
Right. And both Joel and Henry did programs in person with us on the learning team before the pandemic, and now they have both many times joined us in these digital programs. So thank you both so much.
Well, we have no plans to stop doing both digitally for when we have to and when they're live again.
Even in the rain. Even in the rain.
Even in the rain.
Okay, so did you find anything yet? Or are you going to show us how you would find something?
I can do both. The weird thing is, like when I tell people I look for, marine insects, doesn't make any sense because insects can't live in salt water. And
right.
Everyone knows that. Like if it's in salt water, it's a crab or it's a shrimp. It's not an insect, and insects don't. But what we're finding is there's a lot of insects that like to live really close to the salt water. And it's a kind of a unique place because there's not as much competition. There's lots of good things to live. So what we found, and the stuff that's here tends to be pretty unique. So that's why we look, because, there's stuff here that's fun to look at. Now, on a day like today that's a little rainy, my net becomes a little less useful because normally I'd be able to sweep it around and catch things flying around. But when it's raining, things don't fly around.
Right. They're
Picture
smarter than
a
us.
tiny fly and a giant raindrop doesn't work so well.
Oh, hey, you know what? I just saw a question go across. I think it was Christine. So what are sea lice? I think she's asking, are sea lice and insects?
That's a really good question because they're called lice and lice are insects, but sea lice are actually not insects.
Aha.
They're usually like isopods or other marine animals that act like lice in that they're on fish or they're on whales or they're on sea lions, but they're not actually insects. They're just given an insect name. That's a really good question.
Yeah. That's why those common names can be confusing sometimes.
Well, and like one of the things we find are like sea fleas.
Yeah.
Are also not insects.
Sand fleas. That's what I call them. Yeah.
Sea fleas.
Oh, they're not insects. Okay.
No, they're amphipods,
Right.
which are more closely related to like crabs and shrimp.
Right.
But they get a name that we make them think they're insects. There are real insects on the beach, though.
Haha.
But you gotta look closely, and sometimes you gotta dig. I'm glad Henry showed you some of the rack, because that's one of the things we're really interested in later. Lately, really interested in lately.
And that's, Henry said you spell rack, it's W-R-A-C-K is what you're saying, rack.
Yes.
And so that's what you biologists refer to, that sort of debris on the beach. Like,
I think it specifically has to be like recently living debris. That's not like a carcass. It's not like a beached whale.
Okay.
And it's not driftwood.
Okay.
It usually ends up being seaweed or some kind of algae, but there are some plants like eelgrass. If it washes up, you call it rack.
Yeah, like this is, you'd call this rack.
Yeah,
what I'm looking
and this
at.
is great because it's mixed. There's a whole bunch of different species in here.
Okay. All
that
right.
Henry's really good at identifying it. I'm learning. I'm getting better at being able to identify it. But there's definitely some flies and some insects that are only found on this rack.
Wow.
Today, not so much.
Right.
It's a little bit too rainy, but throughout the year, you will still find them. Always where there's rack on a beach.
Neat. Okay. Thanks, Joel. So
wait, before you move on, we just have a quick
yeah.
question. Can you just name again where the beach you are is?
Oh yeah, we are down at the beach at Dallas Road, really close to Clover Point. So I'm going to turn around slowly so you don't get sick. But for the locals, if you see there, I'm facing Clover Point over there. So that is east. So I'm going to turn back over here towards west where Joel is. So down just below Dallas Road. Thank you. Okay.
Now, even though I can't really swing my net, it's not very useful today, I still have my pooter, which is always good, rain or shine.
Yeah. Okay, we get to see a pooter in action.
And there's a lot of debate why it's called a pooter, and I don't have a good answer. I think it's mostly the sound.
And for anybody who wants to make their own pooter, you can find instructions how to make one on the internet. Lots of them, lots of teachers use pooters. They're really great for studying insects. And there is a way to get them so you don't harm the insects too.
Well, and the biggest thing, you don't want to harm the insects. You don't want to harm yourself.
Yeah.
So if you look closely, there is a little piece of mesh inside. So I don't breathe in the insects.
Right.
That would be gross.
We don't want that.
For the insect and me.
But we're going to watch you do this, Joel. Okay.
So, but you can still look for things. Like you could look under here. It might be a little easier for us to look up here and maybe a little drier.
I'm trying not to poke Joel in the eye with the umbrella.
So if we look under here, you might find stuff crawling on some of this.
It's pretty wet already. Pretty wet already.
I tried to keep some dry.
It's the West Coast, Joel.
So we could find some. But if you dig in here, and this is the neat thing about beaches, is that even when you think it's kind of done and it's just rocky, there's always these little pockets of stuff.
That's why exploring the beach is so fun. Sure, we did it as kids, but as adults, it's still fun. It's amazing what you can find.
And even in here, and the thing is, if you're really careful, I've known people that'll come out here with sifters, kind of like some of them actually are kitchen colanders, and they'll sift through it, and you'll get some really interesting beetles, but you got to sift through a lot of stuff to get a couple of beetles out of here. I tend to usually look for the stuff that's moving. Oh, there's one. And he just flew. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't see it.
There he is.
I'm trying to get. Oh.
They're small and they're quick.
So then Joel puts that in his mouth. And he puts the pooter down there where the insect is, and then just inhales basically and sucks up the insect into the tube. There we go.
See there, would suck it up.
Did you get it in there?
And if you're lucky, it'll crawl back up. But I don't know if this one's going to crawl back up right now. It might be a little too cold. But it's nice with this because you can look at it. Sometimes we can identify right away, right there.
Okay.
Sometimes they're so small, I'm like, I'll guess, but I really have to get it back to a microscope. And sometimes I have to get a microscope and then get a friend. There's a lot of colleagues around the world that'll identify them better. I actually earlier today, and I can't find any more right now, I found some jumping bristle tails that were on one of these logs that are really neat. And they're only ever found on cliffs and stuff like this.
Oh, neat.
And I have a friend in Alaska that wants to study them. So I was kind of glad that I found those today, that I can send him some more.
I wonder if there's another little drier spot we could see if you could grab an insect. It's pretty. The rain is not letting up.
While you're looking, there's a question.
Under there, Joel. Sure. What about those guys?
I do have, actually, can you see those?
Oh, wait.
Those are the bristle tails that I found earlier.
Oh, okay. Let me just, if you hold it still, I'm going to hold the camera still. So those are bristle tails?
Yeah, and they're kind of related to the silverfish you find underneath your sink.
Yeah.
They're weird little insects. They don't have wings, but they do have 6 legs. They do have eyes. They do have antenna, but they do jump. That's why they're called jumping bristle tails. But they're really weird.
Yeah, maybe turn it a little. There we go.
That better?
Yeah. Thank you.
There's not a lot of species. They're really old.
Huh.
And this friend of mine in Alaska wants to study them because the ones we have here on the BC, we don't know what they are. So.
And those are not aquatic. You put them in water?
Yeah, I just stored them in here so I'll be
Okay.
able to take them back to look at them.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joel. Jenny, you had a question?
Yes, there is a question. Wondering, oh wait. Oh, yes. Whenever I'm at the beach, this is from Linda. Whenever I'm at the beach, I see a lot of flies. Are there a most common insect at the beach?
Well, I would agree with you. I see a lot of flies too, but I really like flies, so I tend to look for them. I tend to think there are a lot of flies because you get flies that'll kind of fly down from the forest near the beach. You'll get some that'll fly along the beach, and then there's a few of them that are specialized right on the rack itself. So I think there's a lot more flies on the beach than you realize. I think there are, although it's easier to see them because the things that you won't see are like beetles, spiders, which will tend to crawl around and they might be underneath all this stuff. So you'd have to sort of stop and maybe dig around a little bit to see them. So yes, there's a lot of flies, but that's because they're easier to see. One thing I don't see a lot of is there's not a lot of bees. They tend to be specialized on the flowers next to the beach.
We're having so much excitement here at the beach. We've got paddlers coming in. Look, Henry's finding some stuff. So Jenny, sorry, before I go on, Joel, is there something else in this corner you want to show me before
we take a look at this? Maybe a little drier under here. I'm not sure if you can get the camera underneath here.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, well, this is really dug in there.
Oh, is
See,
it?
this would be a spot that you might be able to find stuff because it's at least drier.
Yeah.
But I'm not
But
seeing
those
anything
insects,
moving
they're
yet.
hiding from the rain. Like
I can't blame them.
no, it's wet, but it is spring. We had to expect it. We knew it could happen when we booked March 24th.
It's not snowing.
It's not snowing.
It's not snowing.
It's just, and you can dress for the weather. We are dressed for the weather.
But the nice thing about a beach like this, and Henry and I have been talking, is that what we found, and we didn't realize this before we started studying, is that the beaches kind of are consistent. If you get beaches that have rack, they'll tend to have rack consistently through the year. So we think, like, yes, in the winter, there's definitely more because you get a big storm and wash in, but even through the summer, whereas some beaches never get rack. They're just in the wrong place. There's maybe not enough kelp growing nearby, so they don't wash in. So we're starting to figure out some beaches are too much rack. One thing that we thought was interesting is some beaches are too rocky. The rack never builds up there. It washes away. So they're nice rocky beaches to look at, but just like you aren't going to picnic on it, there's not tends to be rack, and there tends to be a lot less and different insects on them too.
Right. So that'll dictate where you're going to go for research.
Yeah, we're starting to try to really classify the beaches the way we, the way we like to talk about it.
Rack is my new favorite term. Henry, it looks like you found something over there. Let's see, go over and see what Henry's found. Okay, I'm going to try not to drop the camera. Here we go. What do we got here? Okay. What's in there?
Okay, what this is a hydroid. This is a species of hydroid.
Now where? This fluffy thing that looks like a plant?
This whole thing. Yes, this is a colony. Hydroids are
okay.
A lot of hydroids are colonial, so they this represents a colony of hydroids, and they do look like plants, and they've often been mistaken for plants. And so one of the things that the rack tells us is it tells us what is living offshore. Okay, and in this case, this hydroid washed up on shores, probably from nearby. And what it tells us also is it gives us an idea of seasonality.
Oh,
because some hydroids are reproductive in the spring, and they tend to then level off and go into a resting stage in the summer. So in this case, this is a reproductive. This hydroid is reproductive and fertile. And excuse me, I know that because I can see the reproductive structures on it. Now it's really difficult to see on camera, so you probably can't make it out. But what this colony has is it has little reproductive structures, and in some ways they really don't look that different from plants, although they are not plants. So,
But easy to mix up. If you don't know, you easily.
if you're not used to look at it,
Yeah.
So they're, but yeah. So what the rat tells us also is you know what's happening on the shoreline, what's the wreck is deposited. It also tells us what's slipping offshore. So we understand all those kinds of interactions.
Very interesting. Thank you, Henry. So we're almost at the end of the program. I'll let Joel and Henry think if there's anything they want to leave us on. But Jenny, have we got any questions in the chat?
Yes, we have some questions and some comments.
Okay.
So Mike said that I believe you're at Spiral Beach between Flintstone Point and Clover Point. So I believe
That is
that's the
correct.
beach that
Okay, it's
you're
called
at.
Spiral Beach. I did not know it was called Spiral Beach, but
Yeah.
that's exactly where we are between Finland. That's why we're spinning around.
Lynn on Facebook says, "You're doing such a great job. Thank you for doing this."
You are welcome. Thank you.
We have a comment from Melissa. "I have a great app called Seaweed Sorter, Pacific Northwest Edition, curated by PT Martone. It works like Merlin for bird ID by asking questions to narrow down the species. Have any of you heard of Seaweed Sorter? The Pacific
It's
Northwest?
an app called Seaweed Sorter.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It looks like Henry has heard of it.
Yeah, I use it. I use it very frequently. It's developed by a colleague of mine called Patrick Martone at UBC. It's a tremendously useful app, and I would encourage people to download it. It works on both iOS and it works on Android. And what it does is it allows you to have a very quick way to try to identify what you're looking at in terms of algae on the shore. So yeah, it's a very useful app indeed.
Oh, neat.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Henry. And Jenny, just a second. I'm going to ask Henry a question. I'm going to put him on the spot. What's this crab down here? It's a crab carapace here. Henry, are you able to ID that guy for us? Or gal? That's an interesting looking one. It's okay if you don't know. But look, it's like,
I don't know what.
it's not a shore crab.
No, I don't know
Not
what.
a red rock.
I don't know what species this is, but looks.
Yeah, they're very cool. We can check that out. We can ID that when we get back. Okay, Jenny, any other questions?
Yes, we have two questions. One is from Douglas, wondering which marine invertebrates and insects take advantage of the massive volume of herring eggs that get washed up on the beach this time of year. Are the eggs part of the rack?
Are the herring eggs part of the rack?
Yes.
Ooh, and really, did you guys hear that question? So what kinds of marine invertebrates and insects might be associated with the herring that's spawning this time of year?
Really
And do they come up in the rack?
No, it's one thing we really want to find out because
Okay.
I don't think people really have a good idea. Or they do, or we just haven't shared it yet. Because herring grow is something I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
If there's insects that are on it, or is it such a short period of time that there's not really any insects specialized on it?
So you're curious about that.
I am really
Yeah.
curious about it because I've asked around and people are like, I'm not really sure.
Such an interesting life cycle. Oh, great question. Thanks for that question.
Yes, and we have
science.
one other question from Vicky. Do you know if anyone is quantifying any biodiversity or mass changes now that Victoria's sewage is not going into the strait?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I don't know if anybody is working on that, like comparing, and it's been such a short period of time. The question was about if anybody is classifying or studying the changes in biodiversity since the sewage treatment center has gone in.
It's so
It's so recent.
That you need a bit of time.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes we don't have a baseline.
Oh,
There-
we
there
can't
might
quite
be
hear
s-
Joel. He's about too far away for us to hear.
Oh, sorry. If you can repeat that, I was too far
And,
away.
and sometimes we don't have a baseline, like we need to know what to compare it to. I mean, and those are good questions, but sometimes we don't know what was the biodiversity beforehand. And sometimes there's events right before and after. I have a friend who was working on a volcano in Alaska, and they just happened to have done a really good survey the year before the volcano wiped out the island. But those are like so lucky that sort of thing happens, because most of the time you don't think of having really good biodiversity before an impact happens.
Right. And I would say, Jenny, if that person who asked that question maybe looks on the CRD website or one of the local municipalities involved in that work, there might have been a baseline study. There might have been people that documented that, but not the scientists at the Royal BC Museum. Thank you for that question.
Yes, and we have a comment about the crab that you're looking at, and Tina says it's a hairy hermit crab.
Well, that was Tina Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina Kelly. So Tina says it's
a hairy hermit crab. Oh no, a
what
hairy
kind?
helmet crab. I've been saying a hairy helmet crab. Oh, when you go,
helmet crab. Okay,
yeah,
we're gonna go
low. We can't
double
really
check
hear
that.
you.
I trust Tina Kelly. She works at the Center for the Salish Sea.
That's right.
She's awesome with her ID. Thanks, Tina. Okay, any other questions before we sign off?
We do not have any more questions at this time.
Okay, I'm gonna flip the camera around. So I've got the intrepid biologists in the background with my umbrella. Put my umbrella up. Can you guys see? Woo! There they are in the background waving. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And oh, there they are. Yeah, I have nothing else to say. Stay safe and dry. Thank you for all your questions and your participation, and hope to see you in a couple of weeks. And this is being recorded, so you can always check it out on our YouTube channel afterwards. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.